You are now entering Clearview, Illinois. The name of tonight's tale is I Don't Like Dead Things. Joe sat outside and kept his head down. He became unusually fascinated with a snail that inched its way across concrete, presumably making a trek from one patch of grass to the next. Typically, these things may bore him to death, but when he considered the alternative, anything was better than what he was currently dealing with. His parents drug him to Clearview, Illinois, from Evanston to attend his Uncle Samuel's funeral. They forced him to come because he did everything he could with the extremely limited power he had not to. It wasn't just that he didn't want to be here, because he didn't, but it was the concept of the funeral that he was violently opposed to. Joe hated dead things. Sure, no one could claim to enjoy them, but everything about them was designed to offend human sensibilities so that you would never become comfortable around the dead, no matter how much you encountered it. Joe, on the other hand, took this dislike to another level. He was terrified of the dead. So much so, he couldn't eat meat unless you made it cute, like a chicken nugget, or even then, he stuck to plants and vegetables that were only alive in an academic sense to him. "Come in here, Joe," said his mother. She knew his predilection to fear and indulged him for the most part. But now that her sister, his Aunt Jody, lost her husband, she needed the support of her family more than ever. "Come in here and remember what we talked about. This isn't about you. This is about your aunt. We are all she has. You don't have to go near Samuel. Just hug your aunt and you can wait out in the car." Joe stood. "I can't." "You can. This is your family. Your aunt needs you to be strong, and so do I. I know you don't like it. Nobody does, but it's a part of life you'll have to deal with. Now do your best to care more than you're scared." Joe stood up and took a deep breath. He could feel his head beating with sweat over knowing what he had to do. His mom put a hand on his shoulder and guided him through the house of distant relatives and strangers. Joe did his best to lock in and not stare at the coffin sitting in the living room, while his mother ran interference and spoke to anyone that attempted to bombard Joe with small talk. As much as Joe attempted to look away, his eyes magnetically pulled towards the coffin. It seemed to always be in his periphery, as if looming over his shoulder, forcing him to notice. Jody sat a few paces from the body. Her eyes were puffy from intermittently sobbing. Joe wanted to run up to her, hug her, and flee, but as soon as he took a step, one of his lesser-known cousins stepped up to her first. He panicked. If his mother wasn't holding his shoulder, he would have ran. Jody and Cousin Floyd chatted away, all the while Joe stared at the floor. "Hey, last time I saw you, you were this high," said a voice to Joe. He had no clue who it was because he tried not to look up. "Hey, it's your Uncle Pete," said Joe's mom. "Look at him when he's talking to you." Joe wanted to ask the man to just stand on the other side of him so he wouldn't have to look that way, but he couldn't vocalize the words and was too scared to get any closer to the coffin. He looked up, but his eyes drifted over to Uncle Samuel's body. His heart beat fast, sweat poured from his forehead. His eyes were open. He didn't know much about funerals, but he knew that his eyes were not supposed to be open wide, gazing placidly at him. His eyes were open. He broke away from his mother's grip and all but ran out of the house. When he got outside, he gasped as if he had been underwater. Joe's dad exited the house a few moments later. He hadn't been able to truly relax after seeing Samuel's eyes looking through him. "Hey Joe, me and your mother have been trying to be patient with you, but this is getting ridiculous. You're 14 going on 15. You can't act how you've been acting anymore. You're very close to becoming a man, and that means you're gonna have to do things that you don't want to do, especially for the sake of family. So what we're gonna do is go back in that house, and you're gonna hug your auntie and ask her if there is anything she needs. Catch your breath and wipe your forehead, okay?" Joe's dad waited patiently for a few heartbeats for him to get himself calm, but Joe was going back in that house again, whether he did it of his own free will or he was drugged. Joe's father stood shoulder to shoulder with his boy, and when he tried to look away, he did not let him. He saw his Uncle Samuel resting peacefully with his eyes closed this time. He knew they were open before. He knew it. With little awkward steps, he approached his Aunt Jody. He gave her a hug and asked if there was anything he could do. He felt slightly better when he saw how grateful she was, but that still didn't deter him from exiting the house the moment he had finished. Just after Joe felt a bit proud of himself for facing his fears, that was when his parents decided to pour more fuel into the fire. They told him that Aunt Jody was in a bad place, so they were going to stay with her for a few days. Joe didn't want to stay, knowing a corpse had been in the house. But when they told him that it wasn't going to be taken away for another day, he almost had a panic attack. He threatened to run away, but his parents stood firm in their conviction. It was for the sake of Aunt Jody, is what they told him. Joe fought and begged. He even asked to sleep in the car, but his parents would not be moved. It was as if they were attempting to put him through this as a form of exposure therapy. They didn't believe someone could be a well-adjusted person and fear death as much as the boy did. They did allow Joe to stay outside in the car for as long as he wanted, but when it was time for bed, he had to go in. Day turned to night, and in elapsed time, his family members all ebbed and flowed in and out, even after the streetlights came on. When there were no traces of natural light and the night had settled in, Aunt Jody's back door opened and Joe's father called him in. "It's time," his father said. Joe took little steps into the house like he were a condemned man. He tried not to cry when he stepped through the threshold. He only had to take 3 steps past the living room, which he thought was completely an inappropriate name currently. The room was dimly lit by 2 lamps and the coffin was mercifully closed at the moment. It would all be over soon, is what Joe's father said before bed. Joe was not optimistic, but there was little he could do at his age. He asked his father to keep the light on when he left, but he denied his request. It didn't matter in the end, because he wasn't going to sleep anyway. The boy just stared at shadows on the wall, attempting to make sense of death and what came after. When Joe really sat and thought about it, how different was death from sleep? In both cases, you closed your eyes and were disconnected from the world. In fact, the only difference he could see in death and sleep was you woke up in one case. Even though the thought made him feel slightly better, it didn't make him less afraid. His eyes drooped and sank in the wee hours of the night, and his body's need to sleep began to override his fear. Joe shook his head to stay awake. He had to. He couldn't sleep with something that unnatural so close by. He got out of bed in his pajamas. He didn't know why he opened his bedroom door and crept down the stairs. Perhaps this was what it meant to be a man, to face your fears. Perhaps. But it didn't feel like bravery. It felt like compulsion. Like a thief in the night, he snuck into the living room. He stared at the silver coffin as if it were his fear to conquer. Joe unlatched the box. His hand shook so hard he didn't manage it on his first try. When the box of new death opened, Joe gulped. His body became hot with fear. He looked inside, and what he saw was just as disturbing as what he was expecting to see. There was nothing inside. Joe spun around horrified. He saw nothing but darkness. He moved to go upstairs and tell his parents, but found a front door was completely open. Joe went outside and saw a man dressed exactly like Uncle Samuel from behind shambling away. Joe was filled with an equal amount of fear as he was courage. "Uncle Samuel?" Joe called to the man while cautiously moving forward. The man moved awkwardly as if his joints were locked. It was jerky and stilted, as if he were mocking humanity with his wild, unnatural movements. "Uncle Samuel," Joe said again, truly believing his uncle wasn't dead. With all the strength of will and his body on fire, he continued. Joe reached his hand out to tap his uncle on his back. The man quickly spun when he felt the little hand touch his shoulder. It was Uncle Samuel, but he was pale and lifeless. His eyes had no light in it. Joe screamed, but no sound came out, only waves of fear. Uncle Samuel opened his mouth and attempted to speak, but all that escaped was a guttural moan followed by flies buzzing, oozing out of his throat. Joe's head was on fire. Then he woke up. He found himself barefoot in his pajamas by a lagoon. He laid in a bed of wet mud with dried brownish red dye on his hands. Joe stood up and wandered for a short while until he stumbled back to Aunt Jody's house. The police were parked outside. His mom and dad ran to him the moment they saw him. They approached with more relief and joy than anger. They asked where he had been, but he didn't know. Joe later was told that someone had stolen Uncle Samuel, but his disappearance overshadowed that. He never knew why he woke up where he did with dried blood on his hands, but everyone had considered it a sleepwalking incident. And for the sake of his sanity, that's what he chose to believe as well. You are now exiting Clearview, Illinois. I hope you enjoyed the trip.